if I were to say to you that we plan to build a railway through this pristine countryside, you would probably protest. And 160 years ago, that's exactly what they did, but the railway was still built. This is the story of the Monsal Trail, and probably England's most famous NIMBY. So how did one of Victorian England's biggest eyesores become one of our most revered monuments in Britain? Well, it all started with a bribe, and I'm going to show it to you in just a second. But first, we have to navigate this hill. The Victorians wanted to build a railway from London to the north to take passengers and freight to help build up the industrial north. Now, where have we heard that before? The locals, they weren't so keen on the idea. So they protested. And the Duke of Rutland, who owned most of this land, beautiful as it is, didn't want the dirty railway clogging his view. So he protested. So to ease his concerns, about half a mile down this way and half a mile that way, they built two green tunnels to hide the railway under the land. These tunnels were obviously a lot slower and more costly to build, but had they not, Manchester and Liverpool probably wouldn't be the size they are today. Now, I think I keep saying the Monsal aqueduct. Now, unless trains were made out of water back then, it's obviously a viaduct. If I have been, accept my apologies. If I haven't been, well, I've walked up and down that slope about 4 times now, so I'm obviously oxygen deprived. Anyway, we're about to enter one of the ways that the Midland Railway bribed Ruskin, so as not to ruin the look of the countryside. They had to build several of these large tunnels, and I believe Headstone Tunnel, which is this one, is the largest of them. It's actually quite eerie to walk through. It has a curve on one end and is dead straight on the other, just to preserve the gradient. But these tunnels were obviously dug just to retain the environment of the countryside, which is oddly familiar to those of us that live near the Chilterns. And now we see the other end of the tunnel. It really is about 500 metres long, which isn't a surprise, because that's what they said it was. Even though it's quite busy, it is very eerie. You can't really see people until they're on you, but you can hear them for ages. And I don't know if it's showing on the camera, but there really is a build-up of soot all over the walls, other than 2 strips in the ceiling. So I wonder if that legitimately is, after 100 years worth of steam train use, steam and diesel, or if it's something completely different. If you know, do leave a comment. And it's completely missing in areas like this where it's wet. So is it carbon from the old steam trains? That'd be super cool if it was. And it can't really be underestimated how much work it was. So it was all manual. There was no machinery, no boring machines. So they used navvies, which were working class people from across the UK and Ireland, who moved with the railway and built what they needed at the time. But as you'll see, as I watch my step through these cuttings and then the tunnels, the work was absolutely backbreaking. The best thing about walking along a disused railway is the gradient. There really isn't one, because trains don't like going up and down hills, and nor do I. So it's a match made in heaven, really. Now the navvies and the workmen that built these railways lived in temporary accommodation put up by the railway. around the local villages, and apparently the crime rate soared whenever they were local. So not only was there the blight on the landscape, but also the locals were concerned about crime in the local areas. And given that most of the workforce moved with the railway company and weren't local, there's probably a lot of truth to what they're saying. Now, do we think this is a disused platform? Looks like it might be. Definitely some works here and to the left. I would assume this is an old platform. Now, the railways were used for about 100 years, from 1860 till about 1968, until they were finally closed just after the beaching cuts. After its closure, the line was ripped up. The viaduct was in disrepair and they said needed ripping down, and all of the tunnels were blocked until it was given over to the trust, I can't remember which, who have now paved it all and turned it into a massive 9-mile public footpath. Now, it wasn't all just NIMBYs and violence against nature. This area was already quite prosperous, mainly due to the Cressbrook and Lytton cotton mills, which are just behind me. They were powered by the River Wye, and they were staffed mainly by 7 to 9-year-old parish apprentices who were brought up from the slums of London and had to work 15-hour days. The work was hard, dangerous. Many, many children died working there, but one became fairly famous. He wrote a memoir, which became the basis for Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist. So even though the railway was seen as a blight on the landscape, it wasn't all roses here in the Peak District. 300 feet long, I think 70 feet high, 20 meters anyway, 5 spans, and we have to remember there was no heavy machinery, no CAD computers to help map this out. This was just black powder, horses, pure muscle. It's absolutely incredible. But now, I've got to walk up the hill to get back on top of it. So are there parallels between this and HS2? Of course there are parallels between this and HS2. History doesn't repeat, but it certainly does rhyme. But that doesn't mean I think they should build HS2 quite carefully. What I think it means is that they should have built this. And I'm glad that they did, because that's a fantastic walk. If you're ever near the Peak District, or even if you're not, well worth a visit. And if you can make the sun come out, do that too. If you enjoyed the video, please remember, like, subscribe, comment. If I got anything wrong, I definitely did. Comment on places you'd like me to go to next, because I'm always looking for ideas of something a little bit interesting to explore.